Have you ever felt the gap between the homeschool you dream about and what your days actually look like? You might love the idea of a rich living education. Perhaps you've read some on Charlotte Mason and you've been inspired by the vision. But when it comes to your actual day, you're left wondering, how do I actually make this work in real life? Today's conversation is going to bridge the gap for you. You're going to hear from a homeschool mom who has lived this out over many years through different ages, stages, and seasons. She didn't start with everything figured out. She wrestled through the same questions so many of us have about scheduling, living books, narration. And what she discovered along the way is something powerful, that when you begin to trust the process, your children begin to take ownership of their education in a way that changes everything. So I'm so excited for you to listen in on today's conversation. I'm talking with my dear friend Shay Kemp, a fellow homeschool mom of 5 and a former public school teacher who has been walking the Charlotte Mason journey for over 2 decades. And this episode is the first one in a series where we were going to be discussing Volume 6 of Charlotte Mason's series. Volume 6 is a philosophy of education. If you want to follow along with this series and read Charlotte Mason's writings and do a book study, I highly encourage you to do that. This will all be available for free on our new Homeschool Feast app. So if you go to your app store and look up the Homeschool Feast, you will find this app and you will find this free book club in there, plus a lot of other free resources. So go download that app if you would like to follow along with us, because I know you're going to love Shay, her heart, her wisdom, and the practical ways she has made this philosophy come alive in her home. So let's dive in to this introduction on Charlotte Mason. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Julie Ross, and I am here with my friend Shay Kemp. And we are here to talk today about just her experience with the Charlotte Mason method. And she is a dear friend of mine. I know you're going to love her. And we're just going to talk about some of the different kind of basic concepts in the Charlotte Mason philosophy and how they have looked in her home. And I know you're just going to learn so much from her. So, hi, Shay.
Hi, Julie. Hi, everybody.
All right. So can you tell everyone who you are and kind of just how your homeschool journeys looked and how you all got started using the Charlotte Mason philosophy?
Sure. Well, my name is Shay, and I live in Boiling Springs, South Carolina. So I'm a Southern girl, born and bred, and I have 5 kids. My oldest 2 are in college, and my youngest is 8 years old, so in the 3rd grade. So I'm stretched in every area of parenting muscles right now. And I was a public school teacher and kindergarten teacher, so I loved homeschooling kindergarten, and that's how I got started. And that was 16 years ago. So we just kept on going. And I read For the Children's Sake years ago, and at the time sort of tried to craft my own sort of Charlotte Mason homeschooling, I guess, education with books on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that for a while. And I actually sort of used some other boxed curriculums, and tried to use her methods. And we did that for a while, and it was doable but frustrating. And then 3 years ago, thank the Lord, on a Google search, I found A Gentle Feast, and I've been using that for the past 3 years. And the lady that wrote it is so good.
Yeah. She's amazing. We should have her come on.
I need to get her on there. Yeah. That's one of the best things about it, was that I got to meet you, and just, you've been such a dear friend and such a joy to know. But so I've been full Charlotte Mason most of our homeschooling journey, but really been able to kind of get the whole picture for the past about 4 years.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons why we clicked so well at the beginning is our stories are so similar, because I was a public school teacher as well. And I had read, The Gateway Drug into Charlotte Mason for the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay.
Yeah.
An amazing book and just a great introduction to her philosophy, but not super pragmatic in terms of what to do on a daily basis in your home. So while it was very inspiring and I knew I wanted to homeschool my own kids, like once I started homeschooling them, I was like, okay, so here's my vision, here's reality.
How
and
do I get there?
big
Where's the bridge?
chasm in between.
Yes, where's the bridge? Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. So yeah, definitely box curriculums help, but it felt very comfortable as a teacher to have kind of all that stuff planned out for me as well. And I think for a while used that as a crutch rather than trying to dig into her philosophy and find
Yes,
out what it really meant for myself.
right.
And I don't think there was, well, there wasn't. I mean, when both of us started homeschooling back in the day,
The resources weren't there, were they? I
back in the
mean,
time of dinosaurs, like you could say,
back when people still look at you cross-eyed when they found out you were homeschooling.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
There just wasn't enough on her philosophy. I mean, there were the
No.
pink volumes, which were very daunting, and I ain't got time for that. I got babies and all kinds of stuff. Whereas now, there's just so much more out there and so much teaching on her, which is so great to people. So how have you seen your family grow since you've started just incorporating more and more of her philosophy?
I think one of the major parts of growth that we've seen is that my children own their own education, that they own it for themselves instead of this model of me standing up, presenting some type of information to them, which is how I really was trained as a teacher. But it never felt, it never felt genuine. It never felt real. It felt like, okay, I've got my education. How do I help my kids understand that their education is theirs? And the more I read of Charlotte Mason's volumes and kind of studied her principles and studied her methods, the more I began to understand that was the whole point, that this education belongs to these children. And these are the methods that you can begin to use to help them own it. So I would say that's the main way that we've grown. And I will say this, I have college kids, and they've had professors say to them, wow, you really take ownership in your own education.
Yeah.
And that was a huge, that kind of like, okay, maybe I didn't screw everything up. Okay.
You're like, whoop.
Yeah, one positive is good, So I think that's the major growth that I've seen, honestly. And the more I trust the methods, and the more I trust, the living books and the whole thing, and really rely on the principles, the more I see that they own it for themselves. And that's probably the main thing.
Yeah, that's great. So that's kind of like a long-term benefit, right? I mean, you see that in the short term, but throughout their whole life, they're going to have that gift that you've given them of being able to learn for themselves, think for themselves, find out and grow as a person and own that, and not just wait for someone to pour into them constantly. But on a daily basis, what are some of the changes that you've seen?
I think one majorly is scheduling. I feel like it's so much easier with the short lessons and the kids knowing what to expect, that it just makes the day flow so much more simply, instead of, okay, I'm waking up thinking, oh gosh, what are we going to do today? And I'm a fairly organized person, but I also really like to be flexible. Yeah. And so, I like flexibility within the structure is sort of the way my brain works. And that's a definite. So the kids know what we're going to do, but this lesson's not going to stretch into an hour, because when the time's up, the time's up. That is huge. That's huge.
Oh, yeah, right. And that it does take a leap of faith to kind of do that and go, oh, but the lesson plan says we're supposed to read this many chapters, but now the time's up, and is it okay to stop? And, but once you get used to it and you see the benefit for your kids of, having those short lessons and having them focus more and more, it does build your confidence and your willingness to kind of allow that process to happen naturally and not be so tied to everything. And I love the fact that you are, flexible, and that you do sometimes follow those like fun little rabbit trails, and that's okay, but it's not your whole schooling isn't that, where there is a time frame, there is a time that we do things, and it does allow you to get your schoolwork done much faster and have those morning lessons. So your afternoons, you can do the nature study and the handicrafts and the things that she talks about without wondering, okay, math took an hour and 15 minutes. What are we going to put out?
Right. And when you have the flexibility within the structure, then they actually take the masterly inactivity of the afternoon as something that's built in. It's like it seemed like before I was really trusting that sort of process, those things got pushed off because we're trying to get everything checked off on the list.
Right.
And so when they know they have that time built in, it really does seem like it's valuable, and it's kind of honored.
Right.
It's
Right.
like that time actually has an importance to it. And I do get that question more than anything else when I talk to moms about, Charlotte Mason and using the methods, and they're like, gosh, yeah, but what about those short lessons? How do you ever get everything done? What do I do? Do we
Mm-hmm.
whatever? There's a lot of questions about that, but trust is exactly like what you said. You just have to sort of trust it. And when we started full CM, I told my kids we're going to get this like a term. And if I
Right.
totally screw you up, then it's just a term and we're done. It's just a term. But at the end of the term and really trust in that process, we saw so much difference in the way the day flowed that it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So someone starting out, where would you point them to in terms of setting their schedule based on her kind of methods and what she used?
I think the first place to start is look at your own children. Look at what forms you have, and my idea is always combine as much as possible. That's where I start.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah,
can I combine?
yeah.
What can we do together? Start there. And I think you can do more together than you expect. I mean, even my Form 4 and my Form 1, my Form 4 loves some of the picture books that we read that are living books. I mean,
Yeah.
he gets so much out of those. We just do them, maybe in morning time. They're obviously not a part of his curriculum or his schoolwork, but it's something we've done together. So that's where I always say to start when you're forming your schedule. And then after that, you just want to start with the basics. How do you get those in and really think about the time? Think about the time, that's like the two keys for me is what can I put together and, okay, I'm not going to go past this 20 minutes. I'm not going to go past this 25 minutes.
Yeah. So for someone who's just starting, like you mentioned the forms, and I'll try to put these kind of in the show notes. Like she did have her grades somewhat grouped together. Form 4 in a Gentle Feast is high school, but in her curriculum, that could be 9th, 10th grade. She had more forms than I use. And then Form 1, grades 1, 2, 3-ish. But that does allow you, if you have children that are close in age, to naturally group them together. They will all already be in the same form, which does make it easier. But then, like you said, you can still combine certain things for other students. So yeah, looking at them, looking at, kind of where their ages fall and ability, like it's not just, oh, they're in first grade, so they must be doing XYZ, or they're 8, so they must be doing this, like, what ability wise where they are at as well. But then I also put these instruments like the timetables that she had. And I think some people can turn those into like legalistic written in stone, and they're not, they're guidelines for, okay, these are short lessons. Here's a guideline, but like, it's not, thou shalt only do this for 30 minutes.
20 minutes, right.
33 minutes.
Yes. Well, it's the flexibility within the structure again.
Exactly,
I mean, we set the timer, and obviously if we're deep in a narration, I'm not gonna, okay, don't say another word. Or if we're deep in a math problem, I'm sorry, we're done. Or if we're really into right in the middle of a scene, in a book or something like that, we're gonna get to a good stopping place. But there's something beautiful about having that. It reminds me of, I'm very visual, so it reminds me of like those Tinker toys. I don't know, did you play with those?
Yes.
I mean, I just love that because you can hand those to a kid and they can build this kind of structure or that kind of structure. And that's the way Charlotte Mason has been for us with the schedule.
That's a great example. Yeah.
I take it and sort of put it together. And then, honestly, then there's days when somebody comes along and kicks it and the whole thing falls down.
Oh, amen to that. Yeah.
So, and that's okay too, because those are life skills,
Exactly.
when, the kid or dad's home and you don't expect it to be, or whatever, grandma's there or whatever. But that flexibility within structure is just a beautiful way to live and cut down stress. So.
Yeah. And when I first started out with Charlotte Mason's philosophy, I mean, it was several years in before I figured out that there were timetables that she recommended. So I was trying to do all like 15 subjects, whatever she has per form,
and
like every day. And every day I was going to like 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm like, what in the world am I doing wrong? I'm so exhausted, Yeah. And then like literally, I mean, it took me that long to figure it out that, oh, you're not supposed to do all of these 15 subjects every day. And they only are supposed to take this long. And so I'm like, That's what I'm doing
And your
wrong.
kids were like, no wonder.
So that's why I
Everything
really recommend starting with those. It will make life way easier than the hard way that I tried to figure it all out. So
exactly.
let's jump into some kind of just basics here. So one of the things that is super key to Charlotte Mason philosophy is this concept of living books. So can you talk about some of kind of what you've learned and what's impacted your children from reading these kind of books and what that means?
Yes. Well, when I first heard the term living books, it was at a convention years ago. And I kind of thought, well, that sounds a little snobby. Like, who gets to decide whether a book is living or not, you know? But now that we've been using the method and really just reading a lot of living books, what I found is those kind of books, they spark something in your child that helps them to make connections, which is super important.
Yeah.
So when we read a book that I can see the light go off in their eyes about, okay, that reminds me of this, or I recognize this in that character, or I see this kind of way this plot is unfolding reminds me of this story, you know, those different things. That's been a huge benefit for living books. I really think that what's been beautiful for me is rereading some books that I had previously read, especially with the older forms, and having in my mind these idea of connection with living books. And that's been really powerful for us. But yeah, I have like a whole list of ones. There's so many great ones out there.
Oh my gosh, I know. Like, yeah. And Charlotte Mason even said, like, people have asked me to like list the top 100 books that I would recommend for kids, and I'm not going to do it. You know, like.
Do it. And I will say we're in cycle 4 this year, which is modern times history in a gentle feast. And I mean, this is the 3rd time I've done the 4-year history cycle. So we've done this, but there are so many more and more beautiful living books being written. And even though since the last time that I did cycle 4, some of these new books about this time period, World War I and World War II, or what we're doing right now, these books are just beautiful stories that really give you the essence of the time period without the dry textbook mindset, and get you into the heads of these people that lived during this time. And gosh, yeah, that's probably my very favorite thing about the Charlotte Mason method, above all, hands down, is these incredible stories that we get to share.
Yeah, and they stick with you, and that's the like a key is they're living. So it's not like something that is, like you said, like a dry dead textbook. You read it and nothing happens with it because it's dead, but something that is living is going to grow inside your mind, and you're going to connect it to new ideas, you know, and years later you're going to remember something, and it's going to, oh, that reminds me of such and such. So that's really cool. And I think too, you made a really good point about some new books that are coming out. So I think a lot of people have this misconception that if you're using the Charlotte Mason philosophy, you can only read books that were written in like the 1800s, or they have to be like at least 100 years old. Now, there are a lot of books being made today that aren't that great. So I completely understand why people might get that, because a lot of the books do come from, you know, the beginning of the 1900s. And that's when like the golden age of children's books, and they were so rich and so well written. And then, you know, in the 50s, 60s, they kind of did a nosedive down to like the Dick and Jane books that had no substance whatsoever. And, but I really feel like even like in the past 5 years, there's been such a resurgence of amazing. Now, don't get me wrong. In the past 5 years, there's still been some really bad books, especially if you go in the young adult section of the library. But right, and so you can't just have this rule that we're only going to read books that are like 100 years old, because there are some really great authors out there that are really writing fantastic living books for children these days too. So, you know, I'm trying to take a balance of like, okay, these are the classic books that have been around forever, and like my kids and I are reading Heidi, right? Like, which is just a staple of all children should be exposed to Heidi, right? You know, but at the same time, like I'll bring in a modern book like Pam Munzo Ryan, Echo, Esperanza Rising. Like, I love her. She's an amazing author of just newer books that are fantastic for children. So I think it's
that same sense, you know, that same sense when you read it, that you can feel that there is a certain amount of reality to the story, even if it's a totally fictional story, but there's just this sense to it that is of the connection. And there's some older books we've read. Okay, well, we don't really get that sense, but we read them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some newer books we've read. So I think that takes experience
Yes.
to
Oh, for
read.
sure. Yeah.
And
Right.
it's a little scary in the beginning because, of course, it would be easier just to have a list, right? And say
Mm-hmm.
everything on this list you and your kids are going to love, you're
Right.
going to love everything on this list. But that doesn't make the education our own, which goes right back to the very beginning of the philosophy, is that this
Mm-hmm.
is their education. This is
Yes.
for them. And so we read these beautiful books. We just finished A Tree for Peter. Oh
Oh my gosh, did you
goodness.
cry? I
I
cried.
totally cried. And what was so hard with that book is stopping when the timer goes. Oh, let's just sit here and read this entire book in one day.
Yes, right.
That book was amazing, but the next day when it's time to read it, there's never a complaint. Oh, we're reading A Tree for Peter. Oh, okay, good. Yes, I'm sitting down, I'm listening.
Right.
That sense, that it's just that book is alive in you, in your imagination, in just this powerful way. And we definitely never got that from a textbook.
Right, right. Oh, I can't wait to read this today.
No. Oh, Mom's breaking out the biology textbook. Wait, no.
Right,
That
right.
doesn't. No.
Or yeah, you don't go like a couple weeks later and you see something on TV and they're like, "Oh, Mom, that reminds me of that textbook reading I did on chapter
Right.
17 on westward expansion." Like that never happens, right?
Never happened. And we're finished this last term, All of a Kind Family, which I'd
Oh,
never
so
read.
adorable.
Why
Yes.
have I never read that book until now? I just missed it. But the kids have referred to that book so many times. They'll say about different friends and they're like, oh, that reminds me of this character, or this person is that character. And that just draws it up off the page. It takes your education outside of your dining room table and really puts it into their lives. And it just makes it a joy.
Yeah. One of the books that you had told me about that we loved, that we read, gosh, I guess 2 years ago now, was What Katie Did.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we still talk about that. Like we were at a friend's house like a week ago and she had a tree swing and it had broken. And so we came back and we're there. We're like, oh, where's your tree swing? And she's like, it's broke. And my kid's like, oh man, I hope nobody got hurt like in What Katie Did. And it was like, and we read that book way over 2 years ago, but I mean, what an amazing story of perseverance for sure.
That book I read for the first time when I think I was in the 4th or 5th grade. I literally, this is no lie, I'm 45 now. I read that book every year.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Yeah.
I read it because, I mean, it's just a short book, but something about the story of going through something that's difficult and having this attitude of what could it be used for, to simplify the plot, a lot. But yes, that is like one of my all-time favorites. I love it.
So this ties in, so living books, and then her other philosophy method that's super important is narration. The two really do go together because you can't narrate something like a boring textbook. You're not going to be able to retell it in your own words, which is what narration is.
Right.
But if you have a book that's living, that is full of ideas, you can take it and you can retell it. So, narration, I think, was another thing that I didn't really understand when I first started the philosophy. Like I kind of was like, okay, well, we're going to have our study guides that we're going to fill in the blank worksheets. And then you can tell me what it's about. And we could add on this extra thing that she talked about that I don't really understand.
Yes. Right.
And then it wasn't
enough.
Right. It wasn't until I realized that you can't do both things, that I was shooting myself in the foot there, and took the leap of faith to really do narration, which at first is scary because you don't have something that you can check off and go, okay, you got 4 out of 10 right,
Right. And we're so ingrained to look for those graded things, or that piece of those pieces of information that we can say, yes, my child understood it. That's ingrained in us.
It feels so good.
It does feel good.
I think a lot of people jump into the Charlotte Mason philosophy and they try narration and they're not getting the results that they want at first, and they give up on the whole philosophy and say, well, my child's just not learning enough, or their narration isn't meeting my expectations. I hear that one a lot too.
Yes.
And I was like, well, you might need to adjust your expectations.
Right.
And that doesn't mean your kid's not going to grow into it, but at first it's going to be a struggle because it's using a whole different side of your brain. It takes a lot more work to take what you've read or listened to and think about it and process it and then tell it back to someone else. Is much higher level thinking skills than answering what color was Jimmy's sweater. Like,
Right.
That's very low level thinking. And when you think of the like different cognitive skills, narration is super complex. So especially if you're starting with, a 6 or 7 year old, your narrations are going to be very simple because they're learning that skill and their brains, haven't truly developed all that higher thinking, but the more they practice it and the more they get it, it really does become easier. So can you kind of talk about what you've learned seeing that practiced in your homeschool?
I do think narration is scary in the beginning. I think it's like, reading 3 books about riding a bike and then you get on it and you're like, that's the way I feel. Cause I'd read I Know and Tell. I'd read all the Charlotte Mason stuff about narration and all these blogs and stuff before we jumped in full term. But I think what I've learned most about narration is just to take a deep breath and trust the process. When we first started, I did get frustrated with narrations because I had this idea in my mind that, they were going to be able to tell the whole story back. But a couple of things that we have done that have seemed to help us to grow, and I do think you can do things to help your kids understand the process better. And one thing is to break things down more. I was definitely reading too much.
Yeah, right. That's a big thing people do at first too, I think.
Yes.
Right.
Break it down, read. I remember we first started, we were doing, I think it was Among the Pond People was the first book, that one of the first ones. And, I'm reading this whole story and then I'm expecting my child to narrate back and she's completely overwhelmed. So I would just read literally a couple of paragraphs. And then have her narrate back, and then we would read a couple more, and and that really began to grow. And I could see such a huge improvement in all of them, because even my older forms, I would say, okay, here's a sticky note, read to here, and then narrate. Here's a sticky note. And the other thing is modeling. And I know you do have to be careful about this because you don't want to have them read everything and say, okay, now I'm going to show you how to narrate, but separate from schoolwork, like I would say to my kids, can I model a narration what I would do for this thing? Not their schoolwork, but maybe if we just watched a TV show.
Yeah, right.
Or if we watched a movie or something. And I would give just my own narration. And they would see that it was personal, and it kind of gives them something to think, okay, I see sort of what she's talking about here, and then they can do it on their own. So that helped us.
That's good. Yeah. And it does show them that like, this is a natural thing that people do. And Charlotte Mason does say that. She's like,
good point.
Human beings naturally want to tell things to other people. So why have we not capitalized this in education? So your kids go see a movie, they come home and they just start talking to you about it. Like, that's what you naturally do. Like, this is normal, and it feels weird with school, right? But then the more you do it, I mean, if I don't ask my kids to narrate now, they look at me like I have four heads. They're like, wait, we just read something. Like, aren't you going to, what, don't you want to know what I have to say about it?
Yeah. And their hands will go up like, I want to narrate, because they don't want somebody to, they want to get
steal it. Right.
They want to get this process out. And what's funny is, like, we have been in conversations before, just especially if you're riding in the car, you're talking to your husband, you just chatting or whatever. And the kids will be like, I want to narrate. They want to tell you. Like, that's not exactly narration, but they're going to say, you know what I mean? They want to add. They want to be in there. And the more they understand that it's natural, I think the more they own their own education. They really just, this is my interpretation of this book, or, or this story, or if you're watching Shakespeare, this play, or whatever you're doing. And I think it is so beautiful to watch them be proud of what they got from themselves. And that is something I've never ever seen a kid fill out a worksheet and like be super proud.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Unless they got like a smiley face or something, like it's the reward that they feel proud about. It's not like the work. Yes.
Yes, but this is like, they're not proud that I'm saying, hey, good job. They're proud
Right.
that they were able to extract something from this story
Mm-hmm. That's
that
great.
either
Yeah.
connected, or they noticed they thought nobody else did. Maybe it's a detail or something like that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I think it really does improve their confidence. And that's one of the things that, even Charlotte Mason talks about is this will eventually help with their writing, but also help with their speaking, right? In the world that we
Yes.
live in today, that is a huge marketable skill to be
Yeah.
able to take information. And really, narration, once they get older, it's like teaching.
Yes.
They're owning it and they're putting it into their own words and they're explaining it to someone else. You could do that, I mean, in today's world through video, but like pretty much every profession needs people that have that skill. Doesn't matter
Yes.
if you want to be like a farmer or a doctor, like you need to be able to talk to people about what it is that you're doing and take information that you're learning and communicate that. So it's a great skill. Now, one of the things I think is super cool kind of about your story that I think a lot of people will find interesting, because a lot of people think, oh, well, this sounds really interesting and really great, but my kid is like in ninth grade, and so they're too old to switch over
Oh, no.
campus. So we're just going to stick to these things that we're doing. And I might start this philosophy with like my younger children, so that by the
Yes.
time they get to high school, they've been narrating for like 5 years, and then but you can't do it with
No,
older kids.
you can. It is not. My son was in the ninth grade when we started full Charlotte Mason with no textbooks, and it. I did give him some more scaffolding probably than the younger ones as far as explaining the methods themselves to him.
Yes, that's
I
key. That's
I
very
did
key.
sit down with him and explain what the methods were. I really sort of talked to him a little more peer to peer than,
Yeah,
obviously
for sure.
the
Yeah.
younger one. I said, this is why we're doing this. This is, some things that the results we're looking for. This is why. We had a lot more conversations about it. And when he began, we really began. I mean, I think he really thought I was probably expecting not enough for his age, because I would only have him read like a page to narrate. That's just where we started, because I wanted him to really get the skill, and
Right.
that habit of attention. I mean, it does take a habit of attention to read the Paul Johnson, history that you're just not going to get from like just a general textbook,
Oh yeah. I mean, there's many adults that can't read Paul Johnson's history.
Right,
Some people,
right.
right?
And I'm like, you can do this. You can do this. We're gonna break it down into bite-sized pieces. We're gonna. I mean, I think you might have been in the 10th grade when we read that one, but when we started that one. But I think that's the biggest thing, is that this is not something that you need to just, if you don't get it at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, then you don't do it. It is such an incredible brain training.
For sure.
For
Right.
whatever age you are. And what's interesting is, even my husband, I mean, I do most of the homeschooling, of course, he's around and sees and sits in and stuff. And he has said before to me, I can't tell you how many times I've stopped and thought, okay, I need to narrate this particular to myself, this particular thing that I'm learning about before I move on. So the
Yes.
habit of attention, breaking it down into small bits, narrating back to yourself, these are really life skills we're teaching them. So it doesn't matter if they're 6, 10, 15, it's valuable enough to take the time to try to incorporate it.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the key. Well, there are several keys you said, is with the older kids, explaining what you're doing so they don't think like you just fell off the crazy wagon. Like
Yes,
they
exactly.
need to have a buy-in and realize, okay, like mom, there's actually a reason, right?
There's a
This will
reason.
help me in life.
Yes, there's a reason. Yes.
And then, to break it down into smaller pieces at first. And and I think that scares a lot of people. They're like, well, I got to get these credits and we got to read through this whole book. And,
Right.
but older kids I have found catch on much faster.
They do.
So it's not like a 7-year-old where it might take their whole entire first year to get to the point where they're starting to give a really good solid narration. An older kid might take a month or 2 and they've got it like that. And then they're ready to start doing their written narrations. And it was funny. My 16-year-old had her final. She's taking some kind of dual enrollment classes this year, but it was an essay. And she came out and she's like, oh man, I did so good on that. She's like, I love writing essays. And it just made me laugh, because it's like, when you have that, where you've talked about what you've learned for so many years.
Yes.
Like that's
You've
the
been
easiest thing
writing
ever.
books.
Like, right. All I have to do, all I have to do is tell you what I've learned on a piece of paper. Like that's
I can do that.
Not,
And I think it's those scary words. Like if you just, we say narration, ooh, scary word. Or you say essay, it's a scary word. But if you say, tell me back what you learned. I mean, you can say that to anybody, or explain the experience of this book to you, or explain the experience of, those sort of things. And it's when you put that word on there, people tend to kind of get frightened by it,
Right. And your kids will pick up on that, right? So if you're tense and you're like expecting this eloquence from your 7-year-old and you're disappointed, like they're going to pick up on that, and to have those expectations of, okay, this is a growing process here. And I think too, one of the things I've told people multiple times is to not be afraid to have some playfulness to it, especially with the younger children, that, take some of that pressure off of them, especially if you have a kid who may be a slower processor, right? And so you finish reading, you're like, okay, tell me about what you read. And their like brain just totally freezes. It doesn't mean they didn't pick up on anything. It's just they need some more time to process. So maybe they're going to draw a picture, or maybe they're going to act it out with Legos, or, they're going to wear costumes and act it out with their siblings. Like you can make it kind of add some more imagination and fun. And Charlotte Mason does talk about this. So it's not like, oh, you have to sit there in this formal thing and sit up in your chair and tell me exactly what you heard,
Well, it goes back to exactly what we said before. It's the flexibility within the structure. I mean, it's the structure of narration. Yes, you're telling me what you learned, but there's so much incredible flexibility there. I mean, and there's, when you especially get to older grades, it seems like things start to be so much less flexible. So it's beautiful to have that narration where you do have flexibility. I mean, I've had my son, when he's got to go to work and he doesn't have a lot of time, and he's like, can I just orally narrate this to you because I really don't have time to do this written. Those have been some of the best conversations that we have ever had, where we have this, he gives me this oral narration and we really start to talk about it. And it was not a scheduled literature discussion, but it just turns into this beautiful conversation. And that's the flexibility in it. And you can't do that every time. He needs to be given good written narrations too. But, so there's a lot of flexibility, whether it's, an 8-year-old making a Lego setup of a scene from, The Tempest, or, whatever, up to, him doing a history narration. So all of that has just been, gosh, it's like I can take a deep breath, because before I would try to come up with something creative and fun.
Right.
And
we got to make this paper mache diorama of the Nile River, and it was like
another mobile to hang in the closet somewhere that you're going to throw away at the end of the year. And now it's like,
wait,
okay,
you throw those away? No, I'm just kidding.
No, don't tell. Don't tell. But it seems like they have the creativity. Once they sort of get the hang of it, they have well, I could do this with my my action figures. We'll go for it. Show me what you've got. Or, I would rather draw this one. This is one, this is in my head. I want to draw it. Go for it. And once again, they're on it, instead of mom coming up with some tacky craft, which there's probably no other moms like that out there except me. But, let's just do this tacky craft to stick onto this book that we just read.
Right. So I could take a picture and put on Instagram.
Yeah.
And we did something today.
And say that we touched all the, learning styles. What? I mean, it really makes no sense, but it probably looks like somehow, wow, they did a great job. There's no higher level thinking in that.
No.
There's no owning of the education in that. So.
Right. And I think that's the key, is that it doesn't mean you can never make a diorama of the Nile River, right?
Right.
But it's your kids' way of expressing what they're learning and having that creativity. And, if you want to add that on to some other time that's not the lesson time, that's fine, right? But creativity comes out of them because they are making it their own. And my kids will do that all the time. Like, I don't even know. We were reading like Ben Franklin's biography, and they're like, well, can we try to do, I don't even remember what it was like or no, it was Da Vinci, like water shoes where he could like walk on top of the water. Like he wanted to invent those. They were trying to, of course it didn't work because I don't think that actually can be, because that'd be like a really cool invention. Like, right. Yeah. I want those, but it was still fun. And they got, the process of it, but it was, but it wasn't like, okay, so you want to do that. So we're just going to scrap everything else for today and go do that. But no, like, because we have these short lessons, you do have your afternoon. That would be a great thing to do this afternoon when we finished our regular lessons. And then, I've seen this, and I know you have too, like that your kids start playing what they've been learning, and their narrations sometimes are them with their friends, acting out the war or the Battle of Trenton. But like, when I asked him about it earlier in the day when I read the book, it was kind of like, oh, well, la, la, and I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah, they don't remember any of the names or anything. Right. And I'm thinking, God, I'm a failure. And then they go and they play this game with their Batman figures. And it's like, you just got every single,
right.
Why couldn't you do that? But that is their narration, because it has, like, they have to process, like you said, and it comes out in a different way. And it just goes back to some of those things I tried before. Like you said, I've always used these methods in some shape or form, but when I was doing workbooks along with it, I was tacking them on to the end. There was no opportunity for them, because I was filling it full of these fill-in sheets, for them to have the processing time.
Yeah, yes, that is so key. And I think, when you look at like, well, from being a public school teacher, I just felt their days are so packed, and it is so cramped. They're cramming so much in. And there's no time for them to think and process about what they've learned. And even we can do that even in our homes, right? We could be running from one activity to another. We got to fit this lesson in. We got to make this craft, that they don't have that time. And that is so key. And Charlotte Mason does talk about the importance for having children to have this time where they can think about what they've learned. And we don't put value on that, because it's not something, again, that we can measure and we can test and we can check off and say we did it, and that does come from trusting the process and then seeing the fruit, which, you and I, because we've been doing this for a while, we've seen that, but at first you just kind of have to trust that fruit will come, from doing it, these kind of things. But yeah, it does take a lot of trust at first. So, well, we are about out of time, because, I just love you. So we could just talk forever and ever, but I think these are two really, well, actually, I think three really important things that we talked about, the schedule, kind of getting your mind around how Charlotte Mason scheduled out her day is key to giving you that flexibility, that time to allow for that, but also kind of just making sure that you're getting through the things that she talked about, the different subjects, and then having living books, because without those, like, you can't have the ideas growing that she talked about. And then her primary method of talking about those books, narration, and kind of wrapping your mind around those three things is huge.
It is huge. And it does take, I think, I do want to say this, is I think you have to be willing to learn with your children with these methods, instead of like, okay, mom's going to tell you about the Charlotte Mason methods, and I really understand it, and I've got it, and I'm going to, that's just, you're never going to get to that point ever, because I'm still learning so much. And every time I read her volumes, these light bulbs going off, I'm like, wow, I need to incorporate that. I need to think about that, or I need to, switch this or change this or whatever. So I think when you just say, we are going to use these methods, we are going, like, it's a joint alongside. I mean, she says several things, about learning alongside your children. And that really makes it more of a corporate education, instead of like this trickle down model from mom to kid, So we're going to learn about narrations. And then 3 weeks from now, okay, we can say, all right, I've seen this in our narrations. Let's try this. And really learning together. Don't wait to incorporate this stuff until you think you've got a handle on it, because there's people who've been doing this for years and years and years and still learning. We're still talking about it.
Well, I'm still learning. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm still constantly learning more and more about what you meant by that, or how to try this different, or and every kid is different too, So
exactly.
Now, I mean, my older two are kind of off mostly to college now, and then I have the younger ones, but one of them has a lot of special needs. And so I'm kind of having to take her philosophy and look, okay, well, how would I apply this to
Yes, that's
this
a great point.
child? And it's a
Yeah.
whole different, a whole different learning curve.
Right. And it is so different with every child. That is a great point. And, because this is their education. So when you're willing to be flexible with it, then, you can say, okay, this sort of narration, maybe they need to dictate to me and I'll type it for them, or, just having the flexibility to learn with them and not think, okay, now I fully understand this thing. Now we can do it, because you'll never do it,
Right. Yeah. You'll be paralyzed. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, there's just so much that it's like, okay, I'm going to understand these few things. I'm going to start practicing them. And then I'm going to keep adding on. And so I think the 3 things that we talked about today, the scheduling and the living books or narration, are just such a good foundation to kind of jump in.
Great place.
Yeah, great place to start, and great place just to kind of grow and, work through them. And I love what you said about learning beside your children. I think it just shows how beautiful her philosophy is, and that her educational philosophy was built on this idea of teaching governesses to go teach in homes, and then eventually used by homeschool moms across the British Empire. So it really is the only unique philosophy of education that's actually geared towards educating children in the home. And so this concept, we don't have to be this authority on every subject, and we're going to teach you and pour into these empty vessels of our children. Like, we can come alongside them because we're in the home and we're with them and we are learning on site, and we're modeling that lifelong learning to them. So it creates, I just think it's such a perfect picture of what home education should be.
Yes. And it's just so beautiful to watch your kids love watching you learn something. I mean,
that's a really good point.
Oh, it's that in itself is beautiful. I mean, that they're like, oh, Mom, you're reading this book. What have you learned? What are you? And I'm like, wow, okay, now I need to give a good narration.
No pressure. Yeah, my kids will do that to me all the time too. They'll come in and like, what you reading?
Yes, exactly. Or just even, we've been working on art stuff, or those kind of things, and they're like, oh, look, I see you're practicing, and they're encouraging me as a learner, and that's a lot. That's just, I mean, really, there's not enough words of what a huge blessing it is. I mean, it just takes so much pressure off. And I think people get overwhelmed by the idea of homeschooling because they think they have to be an expert. But the whole point here is, no, you don't. You don't need to be.
Right. Yeah. I love that so much. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat. And I'm definitely going to have you come chat some more, because you and I could just talk about this stuff till what's the Southern phrase for that? Till the cows come home?
Yes, girl.
Yeah,
we can chat till the cows come home.
All right. Thanks, Shay.
Okay. Love you, girl. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. Let's wrap up with some key takeaways. Number 1, ownership is the goal of education. When children are given the space to think, process, and narrate, they begin to take responsibility for their own learning. Over time, this builds confident, independent thinkers who carry these skills into adulthood. Number 2, short lessons create focus and freedom. Keeping lessons brief helps children stay attentive and engaged while preventing the day from dragging on. This rhythm allows space for meaningful afternoons filled with creativity, rest, and exploration. Number 3, living books bring learning to life. Rich, well-written stories spark imagination and help children make deep connections across subjects and experiences. These books stay with them far beyond the lesson and become part of how they understand the world. Number 4, narration builds true understanding. Rather than relying on worksheets or quizzes, narration invites children to process and express what they've learned in their own words. This strengthens comprehension, communication, and critical thinking over time. Number 5, you don't have to have it all figured out to begin. Charlotte Mason's approach is something you grow into. As you practice alongside your children, you'll gain confidence, make adjustments, and discover what works best for your unique family. Thanks again for joining me today at the Homeschool Feast. If this episode encouraged you, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and visit thehomeschoolfeast.com for more resources to help you create a homeschool and life worth savoring. Until next time, keep spreading the feast.